Hello, hello, and welcome to episode 78 of Trails in the Pod. I'm Colin, that's Kevin.
Colin, do you think that the nobles of Erebonia should hold Gileath Osborne's chamber pot?
Um, I have no opinion on the matter. I can't say that I've thought about why they would consent to holding his chamber pot.
You should consider that matter because giving the nobility meaningless titles and duties was a key component of the centralization efforts by Louis XIV, the Sun King, at his new palace of Versailles.
I believe that's accurate.
I also pooped in the corners of the stairwells, and the smell was legendarily awful throughout the palace. But you know what smells great, Colin?
What, Kevin?
You know what people love?
What?
The prologue to Star Wars Episode 1 about trade disputes. When you saw those yellow letters scrolling by talking about tariffs, I knew as a 9 year old, 8 year old, your blood was thundering in your veins. And guess what, Colin? Guess what? How lucky you are today.
I gotta say, Kevin, my appreciation for the Phantom Menace has grown with age because I really like their talks about like interstellar trade disputes, and we have a similar thing here. Guys, we're doing something a little bit different. Normally, we cover chapters. Um, Sometimes we have to do two episodes to cover a chapter, and we're doing that here. But we will have played through the whole chapter. Kevin has played through the whole chapter. However, we're going to cover day 1 and 2, and we want to make sure that we do it right. So I stopped before day 3 because I remember from way back in the day, day 3 like is really intense. There's some really stuff that we want to be able to analyze. So I've stopped. We're recording day 1 and 2 so that we don't like just speed pass through all of that. And then next week you will get a full-fledged episode just on day 3. And Kevin, normally I ask you for your opinions about the chapter, and I'm going to ask you that. But something that I want to state is that I am so impressed with the pacing of Trails into Azure. I was complaining a little bit about how the first chapter was a bit too slow, and that's fair. But what I didn't remember was how early this chapter happened. Like already, things are happening. Like these are big movers and shakers. We're seeing Red Constellation, Highways making moves. We got all of these foreign dignitaries coming in, and it feels like something that would be like the midway point of an epic game or like, a culminating moment. And instead, it's here in chapter 2 because Azure knows that we have all of this foundation. It doesn't need to waste time introducing even more elements to us. It's in stark contrast to the first half of SC, and I really like the pacing of this.
Chapter 2, I thought was phenomenal. Chapter 1 was good. I liked it, but chapter 2, like I unironically enjoyed the trade conference stuff, the talking about logistics and trade and sovereignty. I thought that was phenomenal. I thought the gameplay was very good. The main quests were fun. The side quests were quite good. It was overall an excellent chapter. I think my single favorite of the Crossbell games so far. But before we do that, I want to go into something one of our listeners said. So we always love comments, criticisms, feedback, questions. Absolutely love it. And the most recent one is from Twitter, and it's a listener saying Kevin changes his statements retrospectively. That's my view after 4 games plus a bunch of extras. And I was confused when I heard that because I always say what I believe. And whether what I believe changes from episode to episode or within the episode, is that really relevant? I, for one, don't think so.
Kevin,
But on the
Kevin,
other hand,
Kevin, I would like to ask you a simple question. Who is the one who suggested that we play Planescape Torment last year?
that was you, Colin.
That was me, right? Yeah.
But listening to 4 games of us, to our extras, our sidebars, our games, absolutely love it.
Ben has been here from the beginning, and he is caught up on your bullshit. So he's just calling it like he sees it. I will say he did leave a tweet saying that we should consider playing the Evo versions of Trails into Azure at a certain point, And while I'm sure there's some interesting stuff in that, frankly, I'm not replaying the game again. So that will not be happening on my end. But maybe the third time I play the game, I will.
The evil versions.
Evo, not evil. These
Oh,
these are remakes for the Vita that you can play through fan translations.
I was about to be extremely interested,
Yeah, you can
but
play the dark side of the SSS. It's just the SSS without the third S.
yeah, listeners, we do this, because we love the games. I love getting introduced to the games, but we also love this audience hearing your thoughts on the games and how we're progressing on my encountering for the first time. So anything that you want us to hear, good, bad, negative, in between, sideways, whatever, send it our way. It makes our day seeing reviews, seeing comments.
It says the man who is not on Twitter at all.
Well, we have an email that people have used.
Do you check the email?
Yeah, I have alerts set on my phone.
See, I check the Twitter. I'm not on it very often on account of I've becoming I really hate social media these days, so I'm not very good at it. But I still post the episode. I still see when people send us stuff. Actually, that same guy who was criticizing you is the one who helped me get Crow 2 up and running. Well, I thank him for his expertise. I really wish that game was good. And I'm not looking forward to playing that game again, but maybe by the time we play it again, it'll be translated properly. Kevin, we are introducing another
Speaking of
element.
translating,
What?
speaking of translating,
Okay, that has nothing to do with what I was going to say.
no,
What I was going to say is that we're introducing a little bit of a new element. It might only work for this episode, but instead of just like going through all of the quests, we found a summary of the plot on the Kiseki wiki that I'm going to read through so we can talk about those different plot points and then bring in side quests and stuff when they're relevant. We're hoping that this is a way to like structure our thoughts a little bit better than just talking for an hour and a half, which could be fun as well, but we want to make sure we hit everything. So, unless you have anything else you want to talk about, we can begin.
give me exposition, Colin.
I will give you exposition. Okay. So, this summary is coming from the Kiseki Wiki on fandom. So, I just want to give all credit where credit is due. We did not write this. But it starts off in preparation for the first West Zamuria Trade Conference, the SSS attends a briefing regarding the security measures for it led by Dudley at the Crossbell Police Department. After the briefing, the topic of discussion then shifts to their run in with the Red Constellation, to which Dudley adds that there has been an enormous conflict between them and Highway in Calvard about a year ago. Randy explains that unlike the Mafia, Jaegers are not attached to specific nations and will therefore grant their clients' wishes as long as they pay up. So this is like the first scene of the chapter in which we're learning that it's not just that Red Constellation has come in and that's concerning, is that they have also had a conflict with Highway, and we've run into Highway before. So this could be grounds for more potential conflict going down the line. Do you have any memories or things you want to talk about for that opening scene?
No, nothing comes to mind as of now. I'll have more to say later on.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I mean, that's just like a brief blurb. I do think it's interesting if you think about Randy as a narrative device. He's a way for us to like get more information about the inner workings of Jaeger Corps without actually being part of a Jaeger Corps. What's interesting is that it's like Lloyd and Ellie are learning about all of that in the same way that we are, rather than Randy being like, "Well, as you know, this is how Jaeger Corps operate." So I thought that was a nice little touch to that Randy can show us that kind of stuff. All right. So this is then covering day one, and then we can get a little bit more in depth. So the summary reads, while looking out for information on the core, they wrap up a number of requests from their terminal. Per the request of librarian Miles Newes, the group investigated the missing ancient book collection at the top floor of the Stargazer's tower and assisted Douglas with a Crossbell Guardian Force drill. So let's start with those two because those are the two side quests that the terminal tells us about, and then there's also a hidden quest. So, what did you think about the Stargazer Tower mission?
It's always good to get back to places that we saw in Zero, and that was a pretty important part of Zero. We saw Yin in combat. It was our first introduction in Zero to magic-y stuff. They have a special term for it. It's like the higher elements, the higher planes, where the rules of reality aren't quite the same as in the mundane. We see it here. Is it just a call back? I don't think so. We're seeing the society much more than in game one, than in zero. So I think this is going to prime us in some way, somehow. Yes, there's politics, the Jaegers, the trade conference, but I bet the society will be involved. The higher elements will make a reappearance. There'll be a lot of magic in the later chapters in the back half of the game. Because there's four chapters and a finale, in an intermission and fragments, but with the end of chapter two, we are not the halfway mark, but getting close to it.
We're definitely not near the halfway mark.
Well, not lengthwise, but like structured narrative units wise.
I mean, I guess. I'll just never forget when I played Trials of Cold Steel 2 and I finished the finale and there were still 20 hours left of the game. So I never quite know how to trust these kinds of labels. That one pissed me off too because I was up until like 2 a.m. In any case, I think you're right about the society being involved in stuff. And part of this is like we're seeing Campanella doing things like hacking Jonah's terminal. That wasn't mentioned in the summary, but I'm pretty sure it happens in the opening cutscene. And I'm intrigued to
Yeah.
see like what more about Campanella is revealed. I'm starting to have some theories about who I think Campanella is, but I won't be able to share that for like six more games. Um, when it comes to the Stargazer Tower part, my first thought, honest to God, was whoever designed this tower needs to be resurrected from the dead and shot for this incomprehensible architectural design. It makes sense kind of as a dungeon where there's like chests to open and enemies to either fight or to avoid. In that case, all right, the architecture is JRPG-ified, we can move on. But there's no enemies in it. We're literally just running to see if books are there, and they're not there anymore. And I'm like, this seems like, a pain because it's not like you have to like run around an entire floor just to get to a staircase that was right next to you when you started. But by and large, harmless that way. I did think it was funny that if 'cause I think you texted me that you didn't realize that the car doesn't move with you. So like you travel to the Stargazer Tower with the car, and then they fast travel you back, but they don't move the car back. And if you had been observant, you would see that you can send the car back to Crossbell at any time by pressing the triangle button on the region map. But you didn't know that. And so you had to run back to the car to get it back.
Yes. That after you said you can send the core back, I looked in the top of the screen. I thought, oh, okay.
Now
Now
you
I
know, right?
know.
Now you'll never make that mistake again.
So I was like, this isn't that convenient. I mean, it's annoying having to go back to get the core.
In terms of the story content of the quest, it reveals a couple of things, which is a bunch of books were there that appear to be related to the cult. Almost all of those books are gone now, except for like a couple that were forgotten at the top of the floor. And we've it's also been revealed that the public library of Crossbell has an archive underneath it and can preserve, these hard to find materials. Which I guess if it's the only library in Crossbell makes sense, but it did kind of surprise me.
Well, I'm just gonna breeze past that. They somehow missed the books that immediately when you go to the top floor of the game of the tower, you're like, oh, here's books. Let's go get them. So not sure what's going on there. One, two, that's an impressive logistical feat to clear out dozens, hundreds, thousands of books. And you've moved recently, Colin. I've moved recently. Are books heavy?
They can be, yeah. It required multiple trips of my car to move even a small library, not nearly as big as the one that you find in Stargazer's Tower. Plus, if these are more like handwritten manuscripts than print books, they're going to be even more unwieldy and more and heavier.
The CGF was guarding the tower. I wonder if this is a subtle way of the game telling us the CGF again has been infiltrated somehow, either by the remnants of the cult, if there are any, or by the society, which I think is more likely. I think the
Or
society would want to get the books. Could it be the church? Yes, maybe that's why Reese is part of the reason why she's in Crossbell, but I don't think so for whatever reason.
I gotta say, so I don't remember if we ever follow up on the books or not. That's an honest, I don't remember, because it's been a few years. I would say that I don't think that an infiltration of the CGF is the only possible explanation. It is a possible one, but it could also just be, I mean, look at how magical some of these people are, where they seem like they can fly and transport things. So it could be the society that's sneaking in from the top. It could be the church who's recovering them as artifacts. It could be even a third party. We're just going to have to see.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Speaking of the CGF, um, this complaint that I have is similar to one I'm going to have for the Bracer one. So we have two side quests, one on day one on day two, where you do like training battles with special conditions against a powerful enemy, and they don't let you heal in advance. No, actually, the second one does let you heal after the first fight, so that's fine. But the second one does. The one on day one doesn't with the CGF. I was trying to pull a Kevin, and I was not allowed to pull a Kevin.
The quest on day one is a main quest.
That's a main quest.
It is a main quest.
Well, that's dumb. Feels like a side quest, and that's me saying it. Not, I'm the one who like always defends the ones that you think don't fit, and maybe this one does, but I don't remember. Holy shit, I look tired. I promise I've been sleeping, but it does not look like it in the camera. But I look exhausted. No wonder Appium was making me fall asleep
Don't
earlier.
be eepy, get some sleepy.
Fuck you. I don't know if that's going to stay in the episode or not. But yeah, I mean, I gotta say, I forgot that that was a main quest. So take that for what it is. I was just I know that like I'm sure that if you beat the guys, you get extra DP. That's normally how it goes. I fucked up on the second fight, and Brandy was the only one left standing. And then we
What do you
fought
mean? Could you
again.
explain what exactly are we doing in this quest?
Okay, so the new deputy head of the CGF wants the SSS to fight some of his guys to train both sides, and he's doing it with special conditions. So the first fight, you're not allowed to use any arts. That's fine because I never use arts anyway. Then it's you can't use any crafts, and that sucked because I use crafts all the time. And then it was no restrictions, but you have to fight everybody plus the deputy commander. And that sucked because all of my people were dead except Randy after the second fight. And I was not healed, and I did not have time to heal anybody. So I was like, okay, well, Randy's just going to die, but then I'll retry the fight. And then the quest ended.
It happened to me. I made a save right before talking to the deputy head of the CGF to get it started. It took a couple of tries, but I did eventually get all of the stages. And Colin, I got like one extra DP.
But, so for some people, getting DP'd is all that matters. You just got to get that DP. If you know, you know. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about another side quest, even though that was a main quest. So you have a tendency not to do the hidden quests, even though you're using the Neo Seeker guide that tells you about them. So did you do this Shin quest?
I don't pay that much attention to the Neo Seeker guide. I don't want to get inadvertently spoiled by either, you know, later on or through the format of like looking through, the different pages of, where and when. So
Mhm.
like I don't have it open while I'm playing.
I
So
typically
I did
don't.
not do this hidden side quest. And we've talked enough about the pros and cons. We don't need to belabor the point
No, no, we're not having that
anymore.
debate. What I do is the first thing I do when a day starts is I look on the guide and say, are there any hidden quests? And then if there are, I go figure out how to get them. And the reason why I'm doing it is because I didn't do these in my first playthrough, and there are some things that happen in other games that rely upon you having played these hidden quests. And this is one of them. So there's this kid, I think we would pronounce his name as Shin, uh, kind of like how Ji, so it would not be, it would be Jin, the XI making a J sound, I think. Um, my Chinese students know that my Mandarin pronunciation is awful when I'm teaching them Chinese history. So this is just me giving it the best shot. But he is the grandson of one of the elders of Haiwei. And he's kind of like being raised up, trained, educated to take over the organization one day, and he's sent off to Crossbell to kind of be tutored by Sao for a couple of months. And so Sao arranges for the SSS to give Shin or Jin a tour of Crossbell. And it's kind of fun because the kid like is instantly in love with Ellie. And so it's kind of fun to see him interact with her and how she reacts. There also seems to be a more nefarious angle in which Jin is being stalked by a couple of people and like following us while we're going around. Although it's not like there was an attack on him at the end of the quest. Maybe that's setting something up for something later. But it was kind of interesting to explore more of Highway's organization and to see more of like the Eastern Quarter type of thing. It wasn't a big thing. I didn't feel like it added that much, but it was a fun quest, narratively satisfying, and helped explain to me a couple of relationships that pop up later that I didn't know why they existed.
Crossbell, sorry, not Crossbell, Calvard and its political dynamics, social dynamics fascinate me because, as you've said, they're a legitimate democracy and it's not, fake or managed or whatever. So hearing more about it, you don't see it all that often in a fantasy game. The empire, the kingdom, the city state, yeah, those are all mainstays. The city state, a bit less so. But the functioning democracy, the imperial democracy, small e empire, that's still democratic, we don't see hardly at all, and especially not one in Western RPGs heavily based off, use a broad brush stroke here, quote, Eastern, end quote, influences.
Yeah. And in order to find out more about Calvert, you'll have to wait 6 more games. I was going to say 5, but then I remembered that Nayuta is. I'm actually very excited for us to play Nayuta because I haven't played it, and so it'll be us approaching that game like new together. Um, what else do we need to talk about day one? Right. So also, the SSS goes to St. Ursula Medical College to talk to Professor Sealand, who is basically the new Joachim Gunter, in order to get back some data on what Gnosis is. And after running around collecting some reports, she tells us that there is no chemical difference between red Gnosis and blue Gnosis. She cannot find a biological explanation for the demonization process that we had seen. And as a scientist, she has decided that she cannot explore it further. Now it's up to like more supernatural, faith-based explanations,
Yeah, there's that. She is very punctual, wants others to be as well.
which I respect.
Yes, I mean, you've had your students be late.
Oh my God, you wouldn't even believe sometimes. Plus, I'm just early for everything. I was 6 weeks early to my own birth.
In general, I like calling back to the Gnosis Cephers and how this happened to them. It got to be studied, calling back to the events of the first game. That's good. I had no idea what she was, or maybe someone in her family from Trails the Third,
So the reason
but
why
I don't get
Kevin is
why it's a main quest.
The reason why Kevin is bringing up the maybe somebody from Trails the Third is because I put in our Google Doc that there is somebody with that last name, and it would be the student council president uh, that you experience in Ellie's flashback, where we meet Lecter.
In Ellie's flashback.
No, sorry, not Ellie's flashback, Chloe's flashback. where you meet Lecter and there's this
Oh,
high-strung student president.
yeah,
Her last name is Sealand. They are related because she goes back to Remiferia, right? She was going to be, somebody
yeah.
involved up there.
But it's not her.
No, it's not her.
Okay. Oh,
But
I
it's
had
kind of
no
nice to have
idea.
those connections. What else happened on day one? Because you talk about that, and then I remember we get a call from fuck, what happens after that side quest?
This is going to be edited out.
Or not? Okay, well, why don't I just actually go ahead and read the summary because that is why we have this summary. So after um we talk to Professor Sealand, we get a call from the guild. It's Michelle, and uh now I'm just going to read what the summary says. Per the request of the Bracer Guild, the SSS gathers information about Red Constellation's whereabouts. Newly appointed Commander Sonia Bales adds that Red Constellation met up with an Erebonian businessman near the Belgard Gate not too long ago. So that night, the SSS meets up with the Bracer Guild to exchange information about Red Constellation. Arios, having returned from Calvard, found that that Rocksmith Agency's office manager, Kilika Ruran, who is, the same Kilika that we know and love, had been stimulating negotiations between Highway and the Republic government. Since neither party concealed their contacts with governmental bodies, Arios dismisses Michel's suggestion that they might be preparing an assassination of the superpowers leaders during the upcoming West Samuria Trade Conference. The SSS and Bracer Guild decide to continue their cooperation and return home. And then, right, this is what happens: is that night uh they're coming back to the SSS building. They're talking about, maybe we'll go get something to eat, which is a very slice of lifey thing. But then Zeit is growling at the door, and Randy walks in, and there is Shirley, who's just like waiting there. And she makes some jokes about killing everybody and burning down the building, normal people stuff. And then she invites Randy to their club, Nuit Blanc, where Sigmund is waiting. Because Randy had pointed out that Sigmund said that they would talk, and then 2 weeks had gone by, he hadn't heard anything. Well, that time is coming now. Lloyd and Wazi invite themselves to go along, so it's like the three men of the SSS are going, while the women are staying behind to take care of Kia. Kind of a sexist, split, but hey, there you go. Um, at that point, Tio is video calling Ellie, Noel, and Kea, and I think decides at that point that she's going to come back. But the more interesting and important part is that at Nuit Blanc, Randy is informed that it's his duty to take up the mantle of the war god now that his father is gone and run the Red Constellation, which he does not want to do, and seems conflicted about how to respond. They kind of point out that it seemed like he had massacred an entire village. It is not explicitly stated, but it's heavily implied. And then Lloyd is there to like be like, hey, we love you, we're there for you. Randy needs to make some decisions for himself.
There's two things I want to bring up. One, get some interesting back and forth between Shirley and Wavy about
Wazi,
Wazzy, about gender and gender presentation, about him, about them coming. Shirley says, "Who am I to say no to a pretty boy like you?" Or wait, dot dot dot, pretty lady. And Wazzy replies, "For what it's worth, most people would probably side with the former." And in general, this isn't a it's not, that played for laughs. Like, haha, it's funny cross dressing or ambiguous, whatever. I think it's pretty well done. Pretty, I'm not sure the right word, but Wazu's non-conformity in the way it's presented and engaged with, I think, is just very interesting in last game, in this game.
sure. I mean, I personally, I don't.
Second,
No, go on.
even traumatized people should be held to justice. If Vandy slaughtered a village, Vandy should be tried, Colin.
We need to have like a podcast counter of how many times Kevin just goes straight up chaotic good, or I'm sorry, no, lawful evil, where he's just like, you know what? You were selling a loose cigarette on the street. You should be killed by the police. You broke the law.
Now, what's lawful evil? Getting people to justice for murdering civilians. It's the most lawful evil thing ever.
He's a changed man, Kevin, and plus he's working for the police.
He's a protagonist. He gets to have as many freebies in the past
Well,
as he wants.
he was a soldier, not for a government, but for a mercenary band, and we tend to not care what they do.
I'm gonna have the scorching hot take that maybe, especially non-governmental soldiers, should be extra not allowed to massacre civilians.
Question for you: under what jurisdiction would he be tried?
Jurisdiction of um, I guess wherever the alleged crime took place.
Well, if it's the village, well, the village is burned down.
I meant the
But
nation, Colin.
right, so it's clearly not in Crossbow. Probably this would be in Calvert, maybe, since they had been fighting a year ago. I mean, I'm guessing that's my supposition. Um, I don't know. It would depend. Like, what if the government, right, was the one hiring Red Constellation? We don't. I don't think we know if that's the case, but somebody hired them.
Well, I'm not sure, but this is, I think, fundamentally different from Ren. Ren was a child, is a child. Randy at this point would be either an adult, very close to an adult, well beyond the age of reason, being culpable for his own actions.
Well, we know that he regrets his actions. That's what
Yeah, I
leads
mean,
him to leave the
regret
Jaeger Corps.
is personal. There should be some sort of external state mandated consequences.
I'm just not sure who would be able to do that. I mean, I know that I'm speculating that the Republic is the one who hired Red Constellation, but given the fact that Highway is its own organization, and it's only recently that they've been entering into cooperation with the government, as Arias was talking about, it makes sense that before then the government would have been hiring Red Constellation. We've seen governments do that before, right? Erebonia hires a Jaeger Corps to destroy the village that Joshua and Luv is from.
Ammo.
Yeah, Hamel. But like if the Calvardian government's hiring Red Constellation to fight against Highway, which leads to this tragedy, I mean, who's ultimately responsible? Is it Randy? Is it the organization that he's working for? Is it the government that
Yes,
hired that
yes,
organization?
yes,
And is the
yes.
government of Calvert then going to try Randy when he's not even in Calvert for actions that they hired him to do?
I doubt they hired him to go massacre a village.
I don't know, man, because the only other time we know about governments hiring Jaeger Corps is literally to massacre a village.
Well, yes, that is true. But there should be some consequences, I think.
I mean, I just want to know your
Feeling
logistics.
bad. If you went out and slaughtered a village, feeling really bad about it would not let you escape the Department of Justice.
But if the Department of Justice is the person who hired me to do it, I think I have a pretty good defense in court.
Just following orders is actually not a defense.
Kevin, I know that you're pulling this from a Nazi angle, and I get that. But it's not like the Nazis that killed the Jews were tried by the Nazi government. They were tried by tribunals after the fact.
Okay, then Crossbell should do it.
You think that Crossbell, in its buffer state situation,
Crossbell is letting a war criminal into its law enforcement.
not only that, but relying on him to save the day.
They let him into the military. That shows a disturbing lack of concern for civilian casualties, in addition to having a stupid military doctrine.
I mean, I think we should just take up the point that it's without Randy, it's very possible the Colt would have won the day in Zero. He was an integral part to Crossbell's ability to fight back, Don't you think he earns a little bit of grace for like saving the state of Crossbell?
The good does not outweigh the bad, nor the bad the good. Each should have its proper due.
You know, you sound like Stannis Baratheon. Do you remember how Stannis Baratheon was not the winner of the Game of Thrones?
The last I heard of him, he was sitting on the Iron Throne with his daughter and family, and everyone was happy.
I think this is more of your Kevin changes his statements retrospectively. Bullshit.
You
All
know
right,
what's
we've hammered the
bullshit?
morality of Rhaenys' existence enough, I think.
I'm right.
You're not right, but that's okay. The other thing is that gets kind of revealed here is that it's heavily hinted that the Red Constellation is there on behalf of the Erebonian government. It's already kind of hinted at before, but it's more kind of confirmed here, setting up kind of a shadow thing where you have your Republican representatives here, like the President Rocksmith, people Killica, and Hiowa is already in Crossbell, and then you have Red Constellation move in at the same time that you have like Lecter and Olivier and Gilead Osborne coming in from Erebonia, setting up a parallel structure um, at the same time of the trade conference. We'll have to see what happens in day three because I know why this is important, and I don't remember if it happens in day three or not.
Well, I
It
was gonna
must happen.
say,
It must happen in
it's
day three.
it's implied that they're there on behalf of the Erebonian government. If you watch that scene and you don't go away, gee, I wonder if the Erebonian government is hiring them. You should look at it again.
I mean, I also it's been a couple of days since I've played it, and I don't want to like overstate my hand. Um, in any case, so that's the end of day one, right? Day two comes around and we open up with a couple of scenes because Chloe's coming in and like we see Z fly around. Uh, Chloe decides that she's going to summon the SSS to the Arcee to have a little bit of a powwow later. We see Julia. People love Julia in Crossbell. She's like, you were talking about how would it be possible for somebody in Liberl to have the same kind of star power as the Arc-en-Ciel has? And I was saying, like, yeah, they totally can. And you're like, no, the infrastructure isn't there. Nobody from Liberl can become a celebrity. Well, Julia is a celebrity, and everybody loves Julia. So, given the fact that she's from Liberl, I think that I've won that argument.
No, you. Well, I concede on that regard.
See, if you were really playing, you would say, we know that Julia is a celebrity in Crossbell, where they have that kind of technology, but we don't know if she's a celebrity in Liberl, except that we do because of a scene from Trails the Third. In any
Well, I would
case,
say it's less technology, more social infrastructure.
whatever.
It's more.
I don't know what social infrastructure means. Like, what are you
It's
talking
not
about?
like, technology. You could have celebrities before the radio, before cameras, whatever. It's like I would say, famous and well known without being attached to politics or religion, culture in a broad expense. We're being well known for cultural production, I would say makes a celebrity. Is Joe Biden a celebrity? He's well known, he's famous. I wouldn't call him, if it was wrong to call him a celebrity, or Dwight Eisenhower and so forth.
I think I would. I think they could fit under the label of celebrity. Um,
Really?
well, I'm thinking Andrew Jacobs wrote a book about how um, Epiphanius of Cyprus could fit under the definition of celebrity, and clearly he's looking at Epiphanius as a religious political figure. So I think it really depends on how you draw the line of what a celebrity means. Um, but also, I would say counterpoint. What about all of the politicians who go on Dancing with the Stars and are therefore famous for their cultural production? I mean, like Rudy Giuliani or Rick Perry, they or Sean Spicer. We knew about them when they went on to Dancing with the Stars for their, cultural modes of production.
Yeah, they're well known, but maybe it's just me. and I'm being weird, but
You are.
celebrity does not feel like the term to describe them.
It's definitely not in the like when we mean celebrities, we don't typically mean politicians. That's true. Um, anyway, that was just me trying to win an argument that we had a year ago. Um, the other thing is that we're seeing like Olivier and Mueller talking about how like they're both representing Erebonia, like Olivier and Gilead Osborne, but their fight is still happening behind the scenes. We're talking about how like Osborne is this authoritarian reformist figure, and we're seeing that the nobles are starting to fight back under the leadership of Duke Cayenne. You made a joke about does he really like pepper? Uh, so I think I've already explained that Trails of Cold Steel 1 and 2 happen concurrently with Zero and Azure. So I don't think it's much of a spoiler to point out that we're going to see some of that in those two games. But I do think it's kind of interesting how like already those plot elements are laid out in these games that are developed before. Um, you had brought up that this kind of authoritarian anti-aristocratization, but like on behalf of the people, was a hallmark of early modern politics. Could you talk a little bit about an example or two?
Yeah. So it's not the oligarchic aristocratic elements versus a nascent democratic reformist. It's absolutist centralization at the expense of the old aristocratic land owning families, here done in the name of the people, often done in early modern Europe to secure the monarch's personal power exercised through non noble or easily controllable officials. Look at Henry VIII. He could make and unmake men like Thomas Cromwell at his pleasure. Look at Louis XIV, Joseph I of Austria, Frederick the Great of Prussia. Those are all monarchs. And on the surface, it's very similar in Livonia. The great landowning families want to protect their old privileges. You could call them feudal. That term is hotly debated in medieval history, but it's not the emperor doing this. It's not Eugene III. It's the chancellor who presumably serves at the pleasure of the emperor. I don't believe there is a parliament, a Reichstag, a diet, or whatever to
No,
which
there,
he is
I think there
responsible.
is a diet in Erebonia.
Oh, there is a diet, but
I
is
think
he
so.
responsible to the diet?
That I don't remember off the top of my head. I do think it's something where like it's a prime minister chosen by the emperor, much like the prime minister is chosen by the king in England, even though there's a parliament. But let me just double check that there is actually a diet. Yes, there is an imperial diet in Erebonia.
Interesting. I got the impression he's Gilead Osborne served at the pleasure of the emperor.
I mean, just because there's a diet doesn't mean that's not true.
Yeah, but like but the diet is not responsible government, as in it cannot unmake Osborne.
I don't think we know enough in the games that we've played to answer that question, and I don't remember off the top of my head if that is made clear in the later Cold Steel games. And also, if it does, it might be a spoiler, so I'm not going to say anything.
So Osborne wants the question is Osborne is doing this in the name of the people. How sincere is he? It's difficult to tell because he is acting on an international scale, international audience here, and he is very not pro people of Crossbell.
Well, we're going to have to talk more about that for the next episode because that's happening in day three, and I haven't played day three, so we don't want to jump the gun on
Spoilers,
that.
Goliath Osborne is in day three.
Yeah. Um, I know he appears in day three, but he does not appear in day two that much. There is like this kind of like entrance ceremony where everybody's there. So like you do see Lecter and you see Gilead Osborne, you see President Rocksmith and Killica and Mueller and Olivier and Bartholomeus from Emefaria and all of that stuff. You see Dieter Croix, you see Speaker McDowell. You wrote down on our doc here that quote where did you write that? Dieter is sus part 1876.
Well, I mean, the port 1876 was a facetiously large number meant for hyperbolic exaggeration.
See, I thought you were referring to a historical year, which
No,
would have been interesting, but it's not.
no. It was built based off when Kia says like, the design of Orcus Tower is familiar to her. That seems big to me. I'm not sure how or why, but
Mhm.
due to Cross building or doing the layout, whatever, the um architecture, like if Kia's knows it, I don't see it being benign or unimportant. I've said all along I don't think he's on the level. I continue to think that, and I think this will be something I look back on and say, "Ha, I called it."
All right.
And then you'll
Uh,
say, "I can neither confirm nor deny."
exactly. I can neither confirm nor deny. Um, so let's talk briefly about some of these quests, and then we can wrap up with main quest stuff. So first of all, the side quest where we have where we're trying to hunt for Olivier. I really want to hear your thoughts on it. I think it was a great callback to Olivier's entrance in SC, where like he's trying to calm down people who are about to fight by playing his instruments, but then he just excites the ire of Jingo. I think Jingo is an awesome character. And so I will say that kind of chasing him around, trying to find him was a little bit annoying, but like seeing Olivier again after a game and seeing him being just so characteristically Olivier was pretty great.
It was good. It was a fun quest. It, I do agree. Maybe going running around was a bit annoying, but his presence is so big in a way we've not seen kind of in Crossbow so far. The way he steals the scene, it's the writing, the history, the character.
Yeah.
I forgave it. He's great. I love seeing him.
And I do think it was pretty good that like we had a game without him completely. And then it's like, boom, here's Olivier. And it's like, I
Yes.
missed that guy.
Yeah. He would I say the same for Shira? Probably not. Tita? I mean, they're great, but Olivier has, like I said, he has presence not many others have,
I
which
believe
is good. It'd be too much.
the kids these days would say that he has Riz.
Yeah, he does have hers.
There's a Wikipedia article with Gen C slang, and I am so glad I found it because it has explained so many things my students have said. Um, all right, so bracing for battle is this training fight between Lynn and Aeolia. I've already kind of bitched about how I wish I had known that I was not allowed to retry it. What did you think about it?
I tried it a couple times, but on Nightmare and Neo Seeker says is one of the hardest fights in the game. I totally believe it. A couple of times I was close, tantalizingly close after using an S break, but they just kept doubling up, hitting me, and eventually I decided, you know what, one or two DP is not worth the aggravation. So I went on, I lost, got the new combo craft. Life was good.
Mhm. I do find it funny how the two combo crafts we get this chapter so far all have to do with Null, and like as soon as I could get rid of Null, I got rid of Null.
She's wonderful.
She's all right.
No, she's wonderful. If you give her an AoE ornament like Petrify or Poison, but especially Petrify, and her craft, that huge area effect, she is lightning.
But you see, Randy is dope, and Wazzy is also dope. And I like Ellie a lot, and I like Lloyd. So somebody has to go, and it's Null. Because mostly how I play these games is I press the X button on the attack and then put in a couple of crafts sometimes when I need AoE damage or need some extra support. I don't play this game on hard mode. I did that for Trails the Third, and I said I didn't like this. And so I made it easier for myself. I'm a hardcore gamer.
Well, I just want the achievements for beating it on Nightmare.
That's fair. There was a hidden quest called Rebotin Remedy, in which the Prince of Remiferia apparently is super good at medicine. He went to med school, even though he is um, a statesman. He's the crown prince or duke or whatever. And
Assad was also a doctor.
well, then that's an interesting parallel now, isn't it? We might have to bring that up again if Remiferia ever becomes important. But he knows Arios. This shows Arios's international connections. He also knows Dr. Seelan. So, like, Seelan comes back in again. We see more of her. And in this quest, the Prince of Remiferia helps us find a special mushroom to help, like, cure some guy with a rare disease. And it just kind of it's a fun way to highlight how Remiferia holds this position as top in class in medicine. Um, and we also saw that in that novel that we had read about the sepathization or whatever was going on with those guys who were just like turning into something. I'm being very unspecific. My face says that I'm very tired, though I don't feel it that much. But what is good about that is that, like, okay, so we see in Crossbell that Crossbell has this hospital, it's modern medicine, it's a new thing, but it also shows that Crossbell is not at the forefront of that. Crossbell is maybe second place. Remiferia is top of the line. And that's why they have to import experts from Remiferia to run this stuff. And it just kind of, I think, goes to show that this is proof that Crossbell's strength is in its money and resources and financial stuff that allows them to import new technologies, but it is not in the development of new technologies itself.
Interesting. Which you wonder how realistic that would be, but okay.
Well, sure. I mean, I don't know how realistic it would be that you have like the financial capital of the world sandwiched between two empires that claim competing sovereignty. When we were trying to do the buffer state project, we could not find a really similar one-to-one case study. We've seen some elements of it in some buffer states, other elements of it in other buffer states, but nothing quite like Crossbell seems to exist in real life. And so it goes to show with that as well.
I
Um,
could see if Crossbow was fully independent and had some way of being, untouchable militarily, maybe due to geography or somehow, I could see it being a financial center. Having a quasi puppet be the financial center does not, it doesn't seem like Switzerland is Switzerland because you can't, it's difficult to invade and it's secure. And that's why it has such favorable banking establishments.
right. And
If
that
Switzerland was in danger of being taken over,
I mean, I don't think that Switzerland is the best case study to compare Crossbell with, and that's what you're getting at as well. We have had some viewers say that it might be more comparable to like Hong Kong, but I don't know that much about Hong Kong, so I can't really trace it one to one.
I think it's interesting. I think the lack of physical proximity of the second imperial power, which I assume would be Britain, makes it more difficult. It's controlled by one imperial power, coveted by an aspiring imperial power. I don't
But
know.
even that's not one to one because with Crossbell we
Yeah,
have a state that is semi. It's recognized autonomous with competing spheres of influence by Erebonia and Calvard in a way that's far more reminiscent of like Persia between the Russians and the Brits, as we had talked about on this channel. But then that has a bunch of
yeah.
different stuff. So the point that I made stands is that there is no one-to-one parallel between Crossbell and historical border states. It's a conglomeration of a bunch of different traits made into a fictional entity. We had
And
talked
that's
we,
good.
we had talked about doing a game studies article. I think that could be a game studies article. The historical reconstruction of Crossbell as a fictional buffer state. That might be a fun summer project. I'll talk to you about that off camera. Anyway, let's talk main quests. Marie loses her cat. Kevin, why don't you take this one? Because I think we all know how you're going to react to it.
You don't know for certain.
Yeah, I do.
I'm just going to say something totally uncontroversial.
Okay.
If not for Shirley, this would be a side quest.
Yeah, sure. So
So the game wants us to be clear. We have to talk to Shirley in this instance. But from what I recall in the notes, we don't get much new of her. I don't think we get that much new insight into her character, what she wants, her goals, her conflicts with herself, the SSS, third parties. So I'm
there's
not being negative. I'm not being negative.
there are two things we learn about Shirley in this quest.
Likes cats.
Likes cats, that's number one. But number two, if you paid attention to Risha, at the end she says, "Ah, so that is Bloody Shirley." She has a title that is
Yeah, I remember that.
recognized by other people in the underworld.
Yeah, but that's not. But I'm not surprised. I could have guessed it that if Randy had a title, his dad had a title. I think the uncle has one.
Yeah,
The cousin, sure, why not?
well, that's fair. I'm just saying, like, I kind of, those who know. There's things about this that are important that I cannot talk about right now.
Well, is the cat gonna come up in like 4 games and be an avatar of Idios?
If you know, you know. I'm not going to
Is
tell you.
Marie secretly, I don't know, an enforcer?
If you know, you know. I can't tell you yay or nay.
Are you making something up, or is it actually something there?
If you know, you know. I cannot confirm nor deny. What do you think, Kevin?
I think you're making stuff up,
All right.
and there's limited long-term consequences beyond Bloody Mary, Bloody Shirley, and she
Bloody
likes
Shirley,
cats.
Bloody Shirley, Bloody Shirley. So after this chance encounter with Shirley, we get a call from Yona telling us that somebody hacked his computer, and so we run down to the geofront, and it ends up being an encounter with Campanella, who taunts us through the terminal, threatens to explode everything unless we beat him at Puyo Puyo.
It's like I'm gonna kill you and everyone you love if you don't beat me in Tetris.
Well, it's not Tetris; it's Puyo Puyo. Pom Pom Party is a Puyo Puyo clone.
What's that?
It's a Japanese game in which you create connections of three colors or shapes or whatever, and then they disappear and you gain points so you can attack the other side.
Interesting. So my point still stands. It is a wild gameplay story disintegration.
Is there anything less anime than a life or death situation being resolved by the playing of another game?
Actually, no, there's not. So
So I mean, I think it's interesting that a lot of the time when we see Campanella, it turns meta like that. And I hadn't even considered this as a meta thing, but I think it's part of it. Like we've seen him break the fourth wall during Trails the Third. He clearly like he's an observer of Ouroboros. He's operating there, but he's also like above everybody else. Now here he's like, oh, I'm super anime. Play Pom Pom Party as a boss fight. There's something about this guy.
I wonder, is he all the way in the reality of Trails of Zamaria? Is he like should be seen as some trans-dimensional traveler? I'm just spitballing, talking out of my head here, but
Yeah.
he seems almost like really connected to the player, like us playing the game. Very like he's aware there's a theatrical performative aspect to all of this, it seems.
So
He acting. He knows he's acting.
that's definitely true. Yeah. I'm not going to talk about what is revealed in other Trails games, because I want you to find that out for yourself. But the exception of, And this I think I can say because I've not played it myself, so I consider this not to be a spoiler. But there are a lot of fan theories based off of how Nayuta relates to the entirety of the Trails universe because it's notable for it's not a Legend of Heroes game. It is explicitly a Trails game. But there's no like one-to-one connection with the other Trails games. But people have come up with theories that explain how it's related, and I think that Campanella is part of those explanations. So we're going to have to play that game, and then we can see how things shake out.
Yeah, I think he's fascinating.
So this day
We've never
ends.
fought him, I don't think.
No, we haven't fought him.
And that seems important. I don't know why, but it does.
I gotta be honest, I thought that we fought him in Trails the Third, uh, and then we played Trails the Third and we didn't. So clearly he's not in that game. It will happen, and I won't tell you when. But yeah. So the game of day two ends with the SSS meeting up with Chloe, Julia, Mueller, and Olivier. And they're kind of talking about how like we have this shared bond between Estelle and Joshua. You're kind of part of the crew. You know, you're saving the world and all of this kind of stuff. What did you think about this meeting of the old guard and the new?
Well, I didn't quite see it in that respect, in the sense of, passing of the torch. I saw it as an expansion almost of if I say the anti-society conspiracy, you get what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
It seemed like with the addition of the SSS, with them being all of a sudden players on this chessboard of shadows, that sounds cool.
Out of a book
The
right there.
old guard, the Scooby team is like, maybe we should induct them or think about inducting them, for lack of a better word, because it feels like we're forming an anti-society with the SSS and Crossbell. We have Erebonia with Olivier, Libero, like it's becoming a transcontinental counterweight in a way it's different from the churches because Kevin and Co do not act quite the same way in alignment with, I don't know what to call this group, but the old guard, for lack of a better term.
Well, I think that the main critique I would have for your idea is that the SSS has not fought against the society at all.
But they did no, but no. I think they're going to. It's very clear they're going to in this game. But them becoming known as saviors of Crossbow that can just speculate wildly is leading people like Olivier and Co. to maybe wonder, you know, could we recruit them? Or we'll see if the society goes after them. Maybe if they win, I'm just wildly speculating, we can cooperate more formally.
Yeah, yeah,
Because
could
they don't
be.
have people in Crossbow yet.
Well, they have Ren, kinda. They had Joshua and Estelle there for a while.
They had Ven, I thought. I don't think she's still there.
That's true. I think, well, assuming that she did travel with Joshua and Estelle have both left. They have Arios.
I think he's sus.
You think he's sus?
Well, that's not new.
No, it's not new. But it is being reiterated so that lest we forget.
Yes.
All right, Kevin.
He's sus. I think Dieter's sus. I don't think they're sus together. I think they're sus separately.
Okay. We will have to see how things play out. Is there anything else about day two that you want to talk about before we sign off?
Do we want to talk about now or next episode the internal dynamics of Calvard and Erebonia?
Next time, because
Particularly, okay.
I think we're going to get more of it with the actual trade delegation. Plus, we both have upcoming meetings.
Until then, I'm Kevin. That's Colin. Day one and day two of chapter two, great. I cannot wait to finish talking about day three. I honestly cannot wait. talk about trade disputes and what makes a sovereign nation. It will be fascinating.
It's where we shine is when we get to talk about politics. So looking forward to playing that.
Yes.
Looking forward to talking to you. All right. Thanks
Until
everybody for
then,
listening. Bye bye.
see ya.